Hey guys, it's Wade Beckersey here, Money Shorts. We're here on the Credit and Collections podcast. It's number 4. We have David Trim here from Hall Chadwick, and we're going to be talking insolvency, preferential payments, clawbacks, the industry as a whole, and what you can possibly do to protect yourself as a business owner, as a credit manager, as an accountant, as a liquidator, and anything more about the industry. We're going to chat to Dave. He is an expert on it, so I'm going to welcome along to the podcast.
Thanks very much, Wade. Good to be here.
Yeah, so I suppose a little bit about yourself for the audience, Dave. How long have you been in the industry? What led you up to this point?
Yeah, sure. I was thinking about it when we were talking last night. I just wanted to, from the outset, tell you where I was coming from as far as conversations. I have a few conversations as an art form, yes. And I'm hoping what we can produce here today is somewhat of a pro heart. Sounds good. We'll see what happens.
That's
if we get Jackson Pollock, that's fine, as long as we can knock it off later.
Yes.
That's basically where we are today. I came from a hospitality, retail, music industry background.
Yes. Okay.
Audio engineer for years, and then moved in as a mature age student. So I've been doing insolvency and liquidations and forensic accounting work for 9 years, roughly. 9 years,
okay, yes.
There's a few different firms. Now, currently with as a manager with Hall Chadwick.
You're the manager of the insolvency
and forensic accounting division in Adelaide.
Okay, and so there's some interesting stuff that happens there, or there's some...
Absolutely.
There's also some mundane stuff as well. Tell us a little bit about a recent interesting thing that's...
we're doing a receivership where we're trying to sell some wine, and at the moment...
everyone likes wine.
Yeah, we're dealing with a few different customers and warehouse facilities, and that's all going smoothly, but you never know when you're going to get a curveball.
Yes.
But thankfully...
Is that in regards to getting the goods back, or no?
No, thankfully this one's all going pretty smoothly.
It's okay, yeah.
So, there's always hurdles along the way, so that's as long as we know what we're doing, which we do. And the wine is saleable and drinkable. Absolutely.
And have you had a taste?
I haven't had a taste of it, no. But we'll see what happens once we retire, and then I might go down to my local bottle shop
and give it a crack.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
So I suppose from some of the businesses that you do look at, is one of the factors they do fall into insolvency or liquidation, is that due to a cash flow issue most of the time?
We would definitely say that's a primary driver for what you'd call insolvent trading.
Yes.
So insolvent trading is usually based on a cash flow test, although there's consideration given to a balance sheet test, versus your assets over your liabilities. But it's really about what cash flow is coming in versus what obligations you face. And one of the main issues we see is that the ATO liabilities are not factored into that cash flow.
Yes.
And
is that something the accountant should get more involved in? That
I would say there's some obligation,
but they are
professional obligation, moral obligation, even potentially. You'd hope they were looking. I have seen a few ticker box accountants. We'd like to try and think that everyone who practices in the accounting sphere does things above board, but unfortunately there is sometimes a bit of a processing line.
Yes.
But
does that also come from the owners and the directors of the company that might keep them
responsibility?
But 100%. Keeping the accountant away from some of those things as well.
That can be a factor as well. We always see it 2020 in hindsight once the events have taken place, so it's easy for us to look back and say, oh, this is what happened X, Y, and Z leading up to a liquidation or a formal appointment. But at the end of the day, there's a pressurised situation usually in a company in financial distress, and people will make rash decisions, including accountants and advisors. So we'd like to think that those professionals can handle themselves. It's when a director has all of the weight of running a business on their shoulders, as well as those decisions of who to pay, when to pay, when not to pay, and how to negotiate payment plans and other issues like that, which, as you said, we were going to discuss.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Well, I mean, with it being in the credit and collections industry, that's a big factor of what we see, and I suppose we see a lot of writing on the wall with clients that do come to us that need their receivables and need their cash collected. We're sort of a last resort in most cases, and then we find that some of our clients do go into liquidation. So I thought that's why I'd ask that question. And it's good that you brought up the hindsight part. What would you do to get to that? if you had that magic ball and you saw well, let's say somebody out there is, in that situation, they haven't spoken up, they haven't spoken to their advisors, what could you say to them, or to me, what we should advise them and talk to them about? Yeah,
absolutely. It's one of the top reasons that ASIC have identified as reasons for failure of companies, where the strategic management of the business has not been handled properly.
Yes.
And we see in hindsight, and I would be hard pressed to say I would be able to manage things differently. I'd like to think I could if put in that situation. But
is that because they don't set their goals and their weekly meetings and those type of things?
It's definitely part of that. 100%.
I would find that a lot of those companies don't have those strict procedures in place that end up in that. We
deal in the SME market predominantly, and whilst even the biggest companies fall over and they do have their systems in place, we find the SME market does suffer from those lack of planning and lack of vision elements.
And the right people doing the right jobs is a big factor.
Allocation of tasks. There's usually a number of factors that will go into those sorts of issues.
Yeah.
We see forecasting as in different industries as an issue with your downturn in seasonal changes in different industries, such as the agriculture industry, and you can never really
those ones you can't.
You would like to think that we could try and get as best as possible information. But at the end of the day, no. Sometimes it sort of fates in the hands of the planet.
That's right. Yeah.
You might have a decade of trading, and 8 of those 10 years will be drought.
Yeah.
And how do you plan for that?
Yeah.
We would say, in hindsight, well, you should have forecast and tucked those 2 years away to try and cover the rest of the 8.
That's a pretty hard task.
Very hard
so you're going to
task.
tuck away 2 years of your income and then not spend them for the next 8.
That's right. And when money comes in, the temptation is there to just go, oh, no, we need to invest and not save for a rainy day or lack of a rainy day.
Well, that's right. And maybe 2 years isn't enough to cover 10
exactly.
in most places.
Right. Absolutely right, yeah. So there's a multitude of factors that we see, and it'd be very difficult to say in one particular industry there was one factor at play.
Yeah. But at the moment we're having, especially in South Australia, the building industry is going through a bit of a turmoil.
Yes.
Any outside factors that you think are contributing to that?
There's obviously issues with timing. You have an arrangement in place where you'll have one head contractor or a group of head contractors in a JV or whatnot, and then you'll have people below them. And that domino effect takes control and has a serious impact as soon as there's any delay. And the guys at the top have the money and resources to be able to stay the course over time and not have to rely on each payment coming through. Whereas once you start getting down into the subcontractors, those companies and those individuals rely on that cash flow. Yeah. And if there's delays, and again,
even one that's missed along those ways, or
it can be a contributing factor to them falling over, that domino effect. And we know on the new RAR there were a few appointments in relation to that, given the delays in payments. And it's not, again, to point the blame at any one particular issue, but it's certainly one to
but that's a major contract in.
Yeah, and I know there are changes, if not afoot, that have recently been announced as far as holding deposits for retentions and timings of that. So that's definitely something for people to look into. Contact your local legal practitioner
and make sure
it's something that definitely, if that holding of retentions is causing you cash flow problems,
there's an opportunity to explore that. You
should talk to somebody about that.
Definitely. Okay. I suppose that leads to me one of the questions we're going to talk about, the preferential clawbacks for companies. What should they do from your perspective to protect themselves, say if there are SME out there?
It's a loaded question in the sense that, again, what we see in hindsight, people make common sense decisions to try and get paid on time, and if they can't get paid on time, they make inquiries about receiving payment plans, lump sums, and there's usually a basis for those unfair preference payments to be clawed back, that a appointee, like a liquidator, will try and claw those back.
Yes, and even the ATO needs to pay those back.
They are, in certain instances, there's a window of 6 months wherein if the company falls over in, say, 30 June, between start of January and then 30 June, the appointee can look back and see if there's any justifiable reason why any of those, the creditors involved with the company may not have received or should not have received payments. Now, the legislation is based on the theory that all creditors should be paid the same in an unsecured pool.
Yes.
So you have a secured creditors, administrators and liquidators fees on top of that, and then you have employees, so they'll get paid. And so there's this waterfall of payments of their entitlements and secured debts, and then you'll get to unsecured. So if they all get paid out above them, and there's an unsecured dividend, what a liquidator is supposed to do is treat everyone equally.
Yeah.
And so if one of those, let's just say 10 creditors, gets an extra $20,000, the other 9 creditors, and having had that payment, where in reality the liquidator would have taken that money if it was there in the company's account and distributed it evenly. Unfortunately, they get what you call a preference. They get preferred. So that's the law says no. That's not the way we want to do things. We want the liquidator to get that money back in and redistribute it
up. Yeah.
That will obviously work to the detriment potentially of the person who's received the preference payment. But
it's usually in their cash flow that has paid their bills, so it's an on-roll.
No, that's right. So it's a matter of understanding your position with the company who's paying you, and not all payments that you receive from a creditor in the 6 months prior are preference payments per se. There's a certain block of rules that those payments have to fall into.
What's one of them that, for example,
as a creditor, you're supposed to know that the company is in financial trouble. Yeah. It's reasonable to assume that you would think these people can't pay their debts as and when they fall due. Yes. That's in the Corporations Act, and that is one of the elements of forming the basis where a liquidator will come in and say that's an unfair preference payment because all the other creditors missed out on that payment, but you got that. Yeah. And again, I would hesitate to give specific legal advice, only to say a legal practitioner is your best bet to go and get that advice in relation to how to specifically manage your situation.
Yeah, of course.
Because there are avenues to recover monies, not necessarily just knocking on the door and demanding cash be paid.
Yeah, of course. All right. I suppose we're going to digress from credit and collections for a moment. What do you do when you're not involved in running Hall Chadwick in SA?
Well, I enjoy Adelaide Hills life, and the entail with that is enjoying the wine industry in South Australia. And we,
I think we even had a wine when we first met over over a lunch. Is that right? Yes. So yes,
we did enjoy a red South Australian red, and it's a great part of our industry for export, tourism, sales and marketing for the whole South Australian brand, and I'm really keen to try and promote those South Australian elements of the business world that we.
What would be one of your favourite ones in Adelaide Hills, if you don't mind?
I don't want to pick favourites. I like Sidlewood Estate. They're very good, and the Lane Vineyards definitely up in my top 3 for Adelaide Hills wines.
Yeah. Okay.
But then we have the Barossa, Langwell Creek, Clare Valley, Clare Vale. So they're all
good. That's right. Yeah. And we are quite blessed to have that many good wines here in
lucky.
SA.
Very, very lucky.
Yes, okay. And so what's the future of your career at this stage? There were a few decisions obviously made to get you to this point. Do you want to sort of go into a little bit more detail around?
I'd like to think I'd take things one day at a time, but the general medium to short, long-term plan would be to continue studying in the professional capacity as a chartered accountant. You have to resolve to...
I thought you were going to... Sorry.
In my professional capacity as a chartered accountant, I resolved to continuing to study for pretty much the length of my career to continue to develop my skills. And at the moment, the next step in that would be potentially specialising in forensic accounting through the chartered accountants offering, and potentially with a view to an MBA or some other.
How do you find time with a small family to put in
full-time work?
and study? Do you get much sleep these days?
I haven't done it yet. I do sleep okay, but knock on wood, we have a unicorn child at the moment. We'll see what number 2 is like, but it's a tough one. You just have to deal with that. We have opportunities to do continuing professional development in small doses, which is fine and great. But when you're talking about undertaking an MBA or forensic accounting specialisation, it can be a challenge.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And you're part of our associations and within your industry. What ones are the ones that
the Hall Chadwick Association is the nationwide association of firms, and they have insolvency practices all around all around Australia, and in respect of the national, so I've got the Chartered Accountants membership, and the ARETA membership, which is Australian Restructuring, Insolvency and Turnaround Association.
Yeah, okay.
Which is a bit of a mouthful, so that's why we call it ARETA.
Yes, RETA. So maybe not too, or I suppose most of the audience would have heard of that. But for people that are outside of the credit and collections space that are tuning in,
maybe not.
That might be something they consider. You would use somebody that's part of that, as if you were looking to voluntary appoint.
Yeah, for the formal appointments, you can definitely try and look for
somebody that's a member of RETA.
Yeah, it's it's accreditation that you have to undertake once you've done postgrad studies like the CA or CPA, where you specialise in insolvency, turnaround, restructuring, and bankruptcy. And I think it's a two semester course to get that accreditation, which I did a couple of years ago.
Very good. Yeah. Okay. And I suppose, is there a particular case, probably one that most people know that are in the industry, but one that stands out to you over the time that you've been in the industry that has something that might be of interest to our...
I've worked on a few different cases. I don't think I'm in a position to talk specifically about any cases. The current firm I'm working for, I'm still a freshie.
Yeah.
So we'll hopefully see in the next 12 months some appointments where we can try and resalvage some value out of some South Australian companies, refinance or restructure them.
Okay. Is there any ones that other firms and other people that, like a famous one that stands out that we can talk about that might be?
Yeah, none that come to mind presently, but if you give me a couple of minutes.
That's right. Well, we might circle back to that.
Yeah, we can circle back. That's fine.
That's good. All right. I suppose a lot of our audience are business owners. Have you considered being a business owner at all before, or you might have had a business in the time?
I've considered it, absolutely, and certainly
what are your
considered
thoughts
the risks
around
and obligations. My family's run South Australian businesses for over 80 years. My grandfather ran trims, and then uncle ran trims, and my cousin now runs trims, menswear in slightly different capacities.
Yes.
And my little brother runs a travel agency.
Okay.
And so we're not short on business.
No, so you would have
some, but it's it's not an easy task.
Yeah.
And there's pressure on you from a lot of fronts constantly.
Yeah. What would you say to a business owner that is listening to us? Some advice for them. I know we talked a little bit about it before, but what type of training or association or what's one skills that you see that they could improve on? Even for me, if you've got...
Absolutely. If you're talking about business owners...
Directors,
directors...
anyone that's at a high level decision making to employ people and keep trade going and all those type of things.
If you're talking about business owners who are hands-on and who are trying to run their business, as well as, let's just take, for example, a carpenter running a carpentry business.
Yes.
I'm assuming the course to get to that business ownership went from carpenter to business owner rather than from a commerce degree through to then carpentry.
Yes.
So in that respect, in the same way that you would get training and qualifications about your carpentry and why you value the work that you do for your clients, you would also want to do the same sort of training and or education about business
running
ownership.
a business. Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah.
Or farm it out to somebody else.
Yeah.
There are
and you keep building, and somebody run your business.
You keep doing your carpentry, and you keep doing that.
Because you're good at building that. That's what got you to where you are.
Get someone to manage your business, and get someone to manage your accounting, and get
that can be as simple as having a bookkeeper.
100%. Bookkeeper, accountant, financial advisor,
all of the professionals.
Payroll operator. There are professionals out there who will do it for a fee.
And they're going to do it better than you, quicker than you.
Absolutely. And
majority of the time.
That's why they're trained for. You don't get an electrician in to do your plumbing and vice versa. You shouldn't get a plumber in to do your business ownership. Now, a lot of people are headstrong and they think that
they can do it all.
That's absolutely fine if they are diligent and conscientious about their work. Yes. This is where we see the pitfalls of business ownership is people lose sight of things that they don't necessarily really care about. They care about doing their job, not running the business.
Yes.
And then if you start to fall behind on your payments with the ATO, you start to fall behind with your payments on your rent or your creditors, then you start to see the slippery slope into insolvency and or requiring turnaround.
Yes.
So,
no, that's a good point. This is what I mentioned before, is get the right person to do the right job. It's very simple.
Yeah,
but it's not that simple when you are headstrong and you're running your own business.
Yeah, and it may not occur to you until it gets to a certain point that that's required. Because the early days can seem easy and manageable. It's when you start taking on an extra employee or two, or you start to take on a job where you have delays in payments, or you have issues.
Well, in growth phase and revenue growth, it's easy time. So problems solve themselves. But when cash tightens up, that's when the leaks come through.
There are different business flow models of when there's a plateau in business continuation and how to handle the growth and expansion. And we've seen that in the construction industry lately with collapses where business have tried to grow, and rightly so, that's what businesses should do, but can't handle and compete with the other bigger fish in the pond, and or can't continue to grow, they don't have the resources. So I'm still thinking about that question, by the way.
No, that's okay, that's good, that's right. We still got a little bit of time, I'm sure.
It is a good question.
No, that's right. I'll think of another one for you. So, when you introduce yourself to people you don't know and you say that you're a liquidator, what's their first reaction?
I usually start with saying that I'm a forensic accountant. I'll be honest with you, because it's an easy in to get people interested in the fact that you're an accountant in the first place. Yes. If I just start, and my wife does this to me and it kills me, she says, "What does your husband do?" And she says, "Oh, he's an accountant," and people fall asleep like that. It's like a sleeping pill. But if I say I'm a forensic accountant, people go, "Oh, that sounds really interesting," and say, I just need that hook to then discuss what else offering we have. And it is part of what I do. In a previous life, it was more, percentage-wise, it was more of my workload. But that having been said, I sort of can't forecast how that's going to go.
No, but that's one of your core skill sets.
It is definitely one of the core skill sets, and it's something that, in general conversation at a barbecue, you don't want to start talking about the downfall of people's businesses and how you had
doom and gloom,
and fire a truckload of employees and that sort of thing. So I start soft, and then we start getting into the turnaround, restructuring. Other side
with some positive outcomes and stuff that people like to go positive. Most of the time.
It's a necessary part of the world we live in, given that we're in a credit industry. So if credit exists, someone has to be responsible for managing the affairs of the abusers of that credit, and or I shouldn't say abusers. That's not necessarily the right word.
No, but sometimes,
the positions where the credit is used incorrectly. And someone needs to eventually take account and be an expert in doing that, the same way that a cardiologist handles heart issues in a human body. You don't go to a GP and go, "I'm having a heart attack." You might to get to the hospital, but to actually deal with the issue, you go and speak to a specialist. And it's the same thing with liquidations and voluntary administrations. So I haven't had the amount of training a cardiologist has had, but I'm.
But for what you're going to do, that's right.
I'm getting there. So. Yes.
Very good. And just an out there question, what would be an ideal business if you were to start one tomorrow? Do you have an idea? Probably a brewery or I think we sort of touched on that last time we met.
What's that?
Beer, was that?
Brewing,
no?
The market is so saturated.
I know, but ideal. Let's say there's no worry about money and
just making money, which is the end goal.
The question was more about what would you enjoy doing?
What do I enjoy doing? That is a good question. I really do enjoy what I'm doing right now. The challenges because you have to wear a lot of different hats during the day. And
so it's not the mundane.
No, that's right. So you never know what's quite going to come across your desk each day. And that's part of the exciting element of the job.
Yes.
We get to meet a lot of new people. I enjoy the customer facing hospitality style role that I used to do, but not doing it till 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. on Saturday night. So no, I'm enjoying the professional I've got now, and I don't really have too much desire to do another job. But if I were to open a business,
this is, let's say, life is not what it is. Open Saturday tomorrow.
Something to do with South Australian tourism and the wine industry.
Yeah.
Tour operator or something like that. Yeah. Drive around the hills.
Helicopter, some
yeah.
type private. These are minor details.
Yeah, no, can't sweat the small stuff. That's right.
Pick up some clients who are just flying in.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, just take them around.
Cheeky chopper.
Oh well, to get to one of the awesome places, it takes 3 or 4 hours to get to some of the really nice places here in SA. So distance, you might want to do that.
Yeah. So.
All right, and so the AICM, Australian Institute of Credit Management. Yep. I'm not sure if you're a member or you're aware of it. No, we have there's a conference in the Gold Coast this year. Yep. Annual. Lots of people involved in that. Mm-hmm. We see a lot of liquidators and insolvency practitioners go along. Is that something you're not? Is that something you'd be actively involved in? I'm not the organiser of it. It's an event coming up.
I can wrangle a ticket 100%. We're a big-ish firm nationally, so
you might already have somebody attending from. Yes, there might be somebody already from Gold Coast.
There's a couple of events coming up with other associations. Subcontract Association. I'm going to be giving a presentation at soon. Yes. A couple of weeks, just about
locally.
Here in South Australia. Nothing interstate at the moment. And about keep my ears peeled.
Have you done all your professional development stuff for this year, for the conferences and stuff for the reader? And,
yes, I have. So that'll all.
They're usually at the start of the year, are they?
September.
Okay, so there is.
Yeah, so there's one in September. So annually we'll do that. The one, thinking about the jobs question, the one that does spring to mind, which is a good news story, is the Spring Gully administration.
Okay.
And that's a tricky one. From what I didn't work on the job. No. It wasn't my company. So I didn't talk about what was going on publicly because it was really a story of South Australian goodwill, where customers hadn't really thought to just directly focus on that product.
Yes.
And because of the range of products on the supermarket shelves, there's not much there to drive you to take that option, except for all the brand SA things that you see every now and again in the flashy tags.
But with the publicity that was around that, we all as customers...
we said, we can spend $5 on a jar of pickles.
And we can help this company survive.
And the team behind it did a great job of hitting that element of the restructure and refinance, and was possible to get a deal over the line where they could, I think, essentially pay 100 cents in the dollar to creditors, which is almost a unicorn job. And this is you never
get that. Funny you mentioned Spring Gully. I just made an order of gift baskets today.
Great stuff.
This morning.
It's good to support local, and that it goes to show that we have the economy and the customer base here to be able to support local businesses. It's just that sometimes with wrong decisions and some missed marketing opportunities or missed marketing as far as targets go. They came back on track, they got the money in and managed to survive another day.
Yeah, very good. So, that's a very good success story, So
not
a great one
too.
But
it's good to have at least one of those in the last few years.
And a good local company, so that's great,
Yep.
Fantastic. Yep. All right, really appreciate you popping in today out of your busy schedule. Thanks for coming in, David.
Good to see you.
Speak to you soon.
Cheers.